Social media, New York City, and Knicks Nation is pretty much having mixed thoughts and feelings on the Knicks and how they've started their season. 41 down, 41 to go. Our New York Post sports columnist Mike Vaccaro is on to talk about the state of the Knicks and where they stand currently in the East. Mike, we're going to brand this as Mike Check. I like it. All right, so a lot of people are wondering like what's going on with the Knicks right now. The record at the halfway mark of the season, 26-15. Mike, that's 2 games better than last year. But if you, sir, had one word to describe the feeling or the vibe or the aura, as the kids call it, about this team, what would that word be and why?
3 letters, meh, M-E-H. And it's not fair to a degree. I mean, the Knicks have obviously had their moments this year. They slaughtered the Nuggets in Denver. They've had really good moments when their offense looked really on point. But obviously they've had nights like last night, a lot of them. They lost for a second time to the Pistons, a young upcoming team with younger legs, with a seemingly endless stream of shooters and athletes. And it's concerning because the Knicks are going to run into a team like the Pistons, whether it's the Pistons, the Pacers, the Hawks, the Magic in the first round of the playoffs. And, you have to learn how to beat these teams. Now, there's still 41 games to go, and Tom Thibodeau has always been talking about how it's more important how you're playing at the end of a season than any time else. And so they still have a half a season to go to get right, but there are a lot of things they need to fix.
You would have never thought in the offseason after adding Karl-Anthony Towns and Mikal Bridges that meh would be the word to describe this team. So what part of their game is lacking most right now, Mike? Like what should be the absolute priority that they need to improve on during the second half of this season?
Look, they need to become a more consistent defensive team. There's no question about that. They have 2 game stretches where they look terrific. They have very good defenders on this team, Mikal Bridges and OG Anunoby, and it's only going to get better whenever Mitch Robinson comes back. But they just have to get better at being able to rotate and getting back instead of arguing with the referees. And just there's too many open 3-point shooters most nights, and that's fine if a team is going to be ice cold. But if they're going to be hot, the way the Pistons were last night, the way the Magic was in the second half earlier in this homestand, that's going to be problematic. And they have to fix that. They aren't going to survive giving up 120, 125 points a night, certainly not in the playoffs. And as good as their offense is, you can't expect to win every game in the playoffs 130 to 125. You just can't.
So the blame's got to go somewhere then for their lack of, I don't want to say defensive effort, just defensive efficiency. You mentioned Mikal Bridges, OG Anunoby, 2 elite defenders. Tom Thibodeau has the reputation of being an elite defensive guru-like coach. So are we turning the focus from the Jimmies and Joes to the X's and O's? Like, is it on the players or is it on Tibbs to get this thing right defensively for the second half of the season?
Yeah, a little bit. The great George Young, the former general manager of the Giants, once talked about a coach who was a defensive specialist, a defensive guru, if you will. And he said it's time for the guru to start guruing. Now, look, I mean, I'm not going to blame everything on Tom Thibodeau. I do believe that the Knicks are still a work in progress. I said early in the season, give this team 10 games, give them 20 games, give them 30 games. Look, after 30 games, they were 22-8. They were pretty awfully good after 30 games. They've run into a lull. All teams are going to run into a lull. All teams this year have run into a lull except for the Thunder and the Cavaliers, but that's coming. That just happens the long NBA season. The key for the Knicks now is recovering from that and getting better from that. And look, all the elements are there for that to happen. Now it's just a matter of getting it done on the floor as opposed to getting it done in theory.
So you wrote in your article, and everyone should go check that out on NewYorkPost.com/sports. You wrote in your article, at this point, it's best to simply forget about the Celtics and the Cavs. A lot of Knicks fans really probably didn't want to wake up and read that because these are the 2 teams that this roster was assembled to beat. Why is it that they should just kind of forget about the Cavs and Celtics right now at this point?
And that's the key right now. Look, I mean, I'm not saying that the Knicks couldn't beat the Cavaliers or the Celtics in a 7-game series. 2 years ago, they beat the Cavaliers in a 7-game series. In fact, they thrashed them, and the core is still very much there. Different coach. But right now, you got to worry about the immediate, and that's being able to survive against a team that's maybe not as heralded and maybe he's going to, against whom you're going to have home court advantage. But as we've seen, recently, the home court advantage at the Garden isn't quite absolute right now. And those are the kind of things you're going to have to do. You have to get right by the middle of April, when all of a sudden you're finding out who your first round opponent's going to be, whether it's going to be Indiana or Atlanta or Orlando. And they all present the same kind of difficulties for the Knicks with the way the Pistons played last night, which is, they come after you, they're young, they're aggressive, and they can shoot lights out if you don't guard them. And those are the kind of things that the Knicks have to focus on right now, between now and the middle of April, which is when they'll play their first playoff game.
All right, got a couple months to kind of turn this thing around. Mike, I'm a glass half full type guy. I like to end things on a positive vibe. I'll even sage Madison Square Garden if they need me to. James Dolan just called me. The hype and the expectations on this team, I think, is a good thing. It's got the city excited. So what are they doing right to where fans can kind of feel like this is only a rough patch or a place of adversity and they can make another run?
Look, Brandon, all the things you said is the reason why I say it's meh right now, because there was such anticipation and such hope, and especially the way the Knicks have played. Look, it's not like the Knicks have given anybody false hope. They've actually played very well for long stretches of the season so far. I mean, they're 2 games ahead of last year's pace, and last year we thought the Knicks had done terrific by winning 50 games. That's a 100-game pace in baseball. So we've shown what they're capable of, and they have a tremendous core. Look, the karl-Anthony Towns, Jalen Brunson, Josh Hart, on and on. The first 6-7 guys in this rotation are as good as anybody else in the league. Now, are they as deep as anybody else in the league? Well, that's a whole different conversation. And that's going to have to be addressed probably at the trading deadline when we start seeing the kind of players that are available for buyouts and acquisitions. But look, I mean, the positive you take away from these first 41 games is that when the Knicks are on, they look like they can play with anybody in the league. They have played with anybody in the league. Less than 2 weeks ago, they were up for about 45 minutes of the game against Oklahoma City. That tells you all you need to know about what they're capable of. But from that moment on, it's been a little concerning. But look, we know the elements are in place, and I think that's the most important thing to remember.
All right, so I wanted to end on a positive note, but now I kind of want to end on a double positive. Is there any update on Mitchell Robinson? You had kind of mentioned him earlier when you talked about the team getting healthier and getting better on defense.
Well, he hasn't started running yet, but it does seem like the day is coming nearer when he's going to be available. Maybe that's February 1st. I'm just throwing that date out there right now, and that's fine. Look, like we said earlier, the Knicks just have to be whole by the end of the year. And remember, last year, that was the biggest problem, is that they were missing key elements, and they still managed to get to the second round. What you want to be is not only playing well, but whole and healthy. And that's the most important thing, as we're looking forward to February and March and the rest of the grind going until we get to when they really turn the lights on for real in April and May.
Get healthy, get some depth, because like you said, it's about to get real pretty soon. Mike Vaccaro, thanks for joining us today.
Great deal, Brendan.